Friend, you priced hay this year yet? Because if you have, you already know the number I'm about to say. In most of the country right now, you're looking at $15, $16, $18 a bale. Some places more. Fuel surcharge on top. 42% of the hay-producing land in the United States is in drought right now. Last year's reserves are nearly gone. And winter's coming right on schedule. Same as always. Not caring one bit about the price of feed. By the end of this video, you'll have 3 practical methods with exact steps that'll stretch every bale you buy this winter. Method 1 alone can save you 45 to 60 days of hay. Method 2 cuts 20 to 40% of what you're already wasting without knowing it. And Method 3 shows you exactly which animals are costing you more than they're contributing. Total savings between $600 and over $1,000. I know this works because in August of 1988, I sat at my own kitchen table at 11 at night with Margaret beside me, paper and pencil, running the math on my 23 head of Hereford. And the math didn't close. I looked at her and said the 5 words I swore I'd never say. I'm going to sell the herd. She put her hand over mine. Didn't say a word. Then an old man named Walt showed up. Tell me in the comments right now, what are you paying for hay where you are? Just your state and the price. I'm replying to every single one of y'all tonight. I want to see how bad it is out there for my homestead family. Welcome to Grandpa Earl's homestead. We bring back the old ways, one lost trick at a time. Stick with me. Because later in this video, Walt is going to give me something on my porch in 2008, a piece of paper he'd been carrying for over 50 years, that I've never told anybody about until today. Let me paint you that kitchen table. August 12th, 1988. Margaret had put the kids to bed 2 hours earlier. The house was quiet. The fan was running. She poured me a second cup of coffee and sat down across from me without a word. The kind of quiet that means she already knew the number wasn't good. I had 23 head of Hereford. Good stock. Some of those cows traced back to my granddaddy Cal's original purchases in the late 50s. They weren't just cattle to me. They were the continuation of something Cal started on this land, something I was supposed to carry forward. And that night, I was sitting at the table about to break the chain. The math said I had hay for 60 days. Iowa winter runs 120. Feed store prices had doubled from the year before. The bank said no. I looked at Margaret and said it out loud. 5 words. I'm going to sell the herd. She put her hand on mine. We sat in the dark for a long time. Then the following Tuesday, a pickup I didn't recognize pulled up the driveway. Old man stepped out. 80 years old. Kansas license plate. White hair under a worn John Deere cap. He stuck out his hand and said, "Name's Walt, 3rd generation rancher down in Kansas. Somebody told me you had a problem. I had a few hours." His grandfather had farmed through the Dust Bowl of 1934. His own father through the drought of 1956. Walt had been through 4 of these dry summers without losing a single animal. He didn't come with money. He didn't come with feed. He came with 2 hours and 3 things his father had written down in a bad year. I fed my whole herd through that winter. Did not sell 1 cow. Did not sell 1 calf. Walt, if you're listening somehow, this one's for you. First thing Walt did, he walked me out to my south paddock. 40 acres of brown, burned-up grass. Nothing worth feeding a mouse. He stood at the fence and looked at it for a long minute without talking. Then he asked me, "What kind of grass is that?" I said, "Tall fescue, mostly." He nodded slow. Then he said something I have repeated to myself every August for 38 years since. He said, "You know what fescue does after the first frost?" I said I didn't. He said, "It gets better. The cold converts the starch in the leaf to sugar. Your cattle would rather graze it in December than in July. The problem isn't the grass. The problem is you've been running cattle on it all year and it never gets a chance to build back up." Then he said, "Earl, grazing what you've already got growing on this land costs 3 times less than the hay you're buying. 3 times. The grass is already here. The nutrition is already here. You just have to respect it enough to let it rest." Ohio State published exactly that number this year, 3 times cheaper. Walt knew it in 1988 without a university course because his father knew it in 1956. And his grandfather figured it out watching his fields recover in 1935 after the Dust Bowl broke. What Walt was teaching me is called stockpile grazing. Oldest trick in every dry weather ranching family going back 100 years. And it starts with one decision you need to make this week. He pointed at my south paddock and said, "That field right there, that's your winter savings account. We're about to make a deposit. Now let me show you exactly how. Before I give you the exact steps, I need to pause for a minute. Because thinking about Walt, a man who drove to Iowa in his own pickup without being called, without getting paid, without wanting a single thing in return, I keep coming back to how close all of this came to disappearing. Walt died in January of 2009. His 3 sons didn't stay in farming. The family land in Kansas got sold to a corporate operation. When Walt went, everything his grandfather and his father had built across 3 generations of hard summers, everything he spent 2 hours teaching me in 1988, almost went with him. Except I wrote it down. Same notebook I was using when my granddaddy Cal showed me things. Different pages, same worn cover. Last year, Margaret and I finally did what I'd been putting off for 30 years. We went through every notebook. Cal's farm journals from the 50s, Ruth's recipe cards and livestock notes, Walt's 2 hours, Henry's tornado steps, Bob's rotation system, 3 generations of people who figured things out because they had no other choice. We put it all into one place. 10 ebooks, over 100 lost methods, a whole section on feed and pasture management, stockpile grazing diagrams, slow feeder plans, corn stock protocols, and the October herd review we'll cover later. All of it written down so it doesn't die when I do. My neighbor Frank uses the income section of the bundle and clears $5,000 a month off 5 acres. Most folks who work through it save around $10,000 a year on feed, fuel, vet bills, and repairs. The link is right below this video, right under the subscribe button. Don't let what Walt drove 300 miles to teach me die with you either. Now stay with me. The exact steps for that savings account are next. Here are Walt's exact steps for stockpile grazing. Write these down. Step 1. This week, walk your property and pick your paddock. You want the one closest to your water source. Best fescue coverage you've got. Figure 1 to 2 acres for every 5 to 8 cattle you're planning to carry through winter. That's your number. Pick it, mark it, and commit to it. Step 2, this weekend, pull every single animal off that paddock. Everyone. If you leave even one cow grazing it, she'll eat the new growth as fast as it comes in. The whole thing depends on complete rest. Step 3, mid-August. Apply 40 to 50 pounds of nitrogen per acre. Urea works. You can get it at any farm supply store for about $15 to $20 an acre. Apply right before rain or right after. If you put it down in hot, dry weather, most of it goes up in the air and does nothing. Wait for the rain window. Step 4, wait. September and October, you watch that paddock grow while every other field is going brown. It's a strange feeling. Your best field getting tall while you're not touching it. Leave it. Trust it. Step 5, after the first frost. That's when Walt said to act. The frost hits, the fescue sweetens, and now you do what he called strip grazing. Run a line of polywire across the paddock. Same portable electric fence we talked about in the rotation video. Give the cattle one strip at a time. 3 to 5 days per strip. Move them when the grass is grazed to 4 inches, not lower. Here's the math Walt ran for me on that south fence rail. 8 cattle, 2 acres, managed in strips, 45 to 60 days without touching a bale. At $150 per animal per day in hay cost, that's $540 to $720 you did not spend. Investment, $30 of urea and 1 Saturday afternoon. That's the winter savings account Walt opened for me in 1988. A few weeks after the paddock lesson, Walt came back. He pulled in the driveway on a gray November morning, loaded me into his pickup, and drove me 3 miles down the county road without telling me where we were going. He pulled up in front of Daryl Hansen's place, neighbor who just finished combining his corn. 80 acres of gray stalk and pale leaf as far as you could see. Walt got out, walked into the field, picked up a broken ear of corn from the ground. Still had grain on it. Walked a few paces, picked up another. Then he turned to me and said, "What do you see?" I said, "A field that's been harvested." He said, "I see 38 days of your cattle's winter." And Daryl sees a problem he's trying to figure out how to plow under. We walked over to Daryl's house together. Walt did the talking. Told Daryl that if my cattle grazed the Ristolo, they'd fertilize as they walked. Save Daryl a pass with the manure spreader and break down the stalks faster than a disc would. Daryl said, "Walt, bring him tomorrow. 8 cattle, 38 days, not one single bale of purchased hay. Here's your action plan. This week, call one neighbor who grows corn, or drive past their fields and look for the combine tracks. Ask if you can graze the Ristolo. 9 times out of 10 they say yes. Run polywire across the field the same way you learned for the paddock. Your cattle will eat the residual grain first, the most nutritious part, then move to leaves and stalks. One warning. In a dry year, corn that was drought stressed before harvest can have elevated nitrate levels. Before you turn cattle loose in a field that looked rough going into harvest, call your county extension office and ask. It's rare, but it's real, and Walt told me never to skip that check. Keep a loose mineral block in the field throughout. Ristolo is low in minerals and your cattle will need it. 38 days. That's what Daryl's empty field gave me. For free. Walt came to the farm one more time that winter. He pulled in on a cold December morning while I was out feeding. He leaned on the fence and watched me for about 5 minutes without saying anything. I was throwing hay straight on the ground. Same way I'd always done it. Same way my daddy did it. Same way I figured everybody did it. When I finished, Walt walked into the pen. He bent down slow. He was 80 years old. Every bend cost him something. And picked up a matted chunk of hay from the mud. Soggy, brown, mixed with manure. He held it up. "How much you pay for this bale?" I said, $8. He dropped it back in the mud and said, "You just fed 3 of those dollars to the dirt. Come find me in the barn." We spent that afternoon building a simple wooden hay rack out of old lumber I had sitting behind the Solero. I've used some version of it every winter since. Here's the number that makes this real. Without a feeder, cattle waste 20 to 40% of every bale you put in front of them. They pull it out, it falls, they step on it, contaminate it. It's done. With a round bale on open ground, the waste can hit 60%. You've got 3 options. Hay net, $15 to $30, works for square bales, cuts waste to under 5%. Round bale feeder with a net, $80 to $150, cuts round bale waste from 60% to under 10. Or Walt's solution, $0. Stack 3 old tires around the base of the round bale. Animal reaches over, can't push it all out. Works almost as well as the commercial version. One more thing, store your hay off the ground on wooden pallets. Moisture wicks up from the soil and rots the bottom layers. Hay stored directly on wet ground loses 15 to 30% of its nutritional value in 90 days. Pallets are usually free, and for $15, send a handful of hay to your county extension lab. They'll tell you the exact protein and energy content. You might be paying premium price for hay that's no better than the cheap stuff from the guy down the road. Now here's the bonus. Walt didn't teach me, my own daddy did. Every October, before the first real cold hit, my father would walk through the herd slow. He'd stop at each animal, look her over, sometimes check her teeth, sometimes run his hand along her ribs. I'd follow him as a kid with a notebook writing down whatever he said. I asked him once, "Daddy, what are you deciding?" He said, "I'm deciding who's going to carry us into spring and who's going to carry us into the red. In a year when feed costs this much, you don't get to keep both kinds." Here are the 4 things he looked at. First, the teeth. A cow with worn down teeth can't chew efficiently. She eats more to try to compensate and still gains less weight and condition. In a hard winter, she's your single most expensive animal per pound of feed. Second, body condition score. Run your hand along the ribs behind the shoulder. If you feel them easily without pressing, that's a 3 or below on the 9-point scale. A thin animal in cold weather burns more feed just to maintain body heat and still loses condition. She costs more than she produces. Third, calf history. A cow that hasn't produced a live calf in 2 full seasons is not pulling her weight in the operation. Normal year, you might carry her. $18 hay year, you don't. Fourth, and this is the one nobody talks about, temperament. A nervous, high-strung animal burns up to 20% more calories just managing her own stress. Same body weight, same day, 20% more feed. My daddy called them expensive animals. He kept the calm ones. Going through these 4 checks every October, my father cut his winter feed cost by 15 to 20% without touching the productive capacity of the herd at all. He called it feeding your future, not your past. That's the hardest lesson in this whole video, and the most valuable one. Let me add the numbers up for you. Clear and simple. 10 cattle. Iowa winter. 120 days. Hay at $15 a bale. Method 1. Stockpile grazing on 1.5 acres of fescue. Done right. 50 days of grazing you didn't have to buy. 10 cattle, X, 50 days, X, $150 per animal per day in hay, $750. Your cost, $25 of urea and a Saturday afternoon. Method 2. 30 days of cornstalk grazing at your neighbor's field. 10 cattle, X, 30 days, X, $150, $450. Your cost, a roll of polywire and the asking. Method 3. Slow feeder cutting 30% waste on the hay you still buy. 40 remaining hay buying days, X 10 animals, X 30% waste recovered, X $150, $180. Your cost, a $15 hay net or 3 old tires. Together, conservatively, over $1,300 this winter, for methods that cost you under $60 total to implement. Now, here's your action plan, not next month. This week, Monday, walk your property, pick your stockpile paddock, fence it off. Tuesday, call one neighbor who grows corn. Ask about grazing their Ristol hoe after harvest. Wednesday, order a hay net online or pull those old tires out from behind the Solero. Thursday, walk your herd with fresh eyes using the 4 criteria my daddy taught me. 4 actions, 4 days. That's the whole plan Walt gave me in 1988 compressed into 1 week for you. Tell me in the comments, which of these 3 methods are you starting first? I read every single one tonight, and I'm giving y'all individual feedback. Tell me your state, your herd size, and which method fits your situation. And let's figure this out together. Walt came to my farm one last time in the spring of 2008. He was 90 years old. His sons had been trying to get him to stop driving for 2 years. He drove himself from Kansas to Iowa anyway. He pulled into my driveway in that same pickup, slower than I'd ever seen it. He got out real careful, hand on the door for balance. Margaret brought tea. We sat on the porch. He looked out at the south paddock, the one I'd been stockpiling every August since 1988. It was April. Early green starting to show. He nodded real slow. "You kept it going," he said. "Every year," I said. We sat quiet for a while. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Yellow, soft at the folds from being opened and closed so many times over so many years. He set it on the porch rail between us. I looked at it. It was in handwriting I didn't recognize. Not Walt's hand. Older, dated simply, Winter, 1932. His father's writing. The Dust Bowl. Walt put his hand on it and said, "This is everything my daddy figured out when it looked like nobody was going to survive that decade." I kept meaning to show you this one, the one I never got around to teaching you in 88. It's different from the 3 methods. It's bigger. Took my daddy 2 bad years to learn it. Took me 10 more to understand it. He slid the paper across the porch rail toward me. I still have that piece of paper. I've read it probably 1,000 times. Walt died the following January. He was 91. I'm going to tell you what's on it in the next video. Because what his daddy figured out during the worst agricultural disaster in American history sitting in Kansas in 1932, watching everything around him collapse, is the most important piece of farm wisdom I have ever read. And I've been sitting on it for 15 years, waiting until I knew how to teach it right. Subscribe and share this with every rancher you know, staring at this winter's hay bill right now. Walt, this one was for you.